There are lots of well-themed roller coasters out there, but instead of compiling a list of the world's best themed coasters, I wanted to compile a list of the world's best themed coaster models, on average. This is not the easiest thing to do, so it's very possible I missed one. If I missed one, let me know in the comments. With that being said, let's get into the list. Firstly, I had a few coaster models that have well-themed coasters at the top, but as a whole aren't a very well-themed model. The Gerstlauer Eurofighter and Infinity coasters come to mind. Saw the Ride at Thorpe Park and Mystery Mine at Dollywood both have some nice thematic elements, but I just don't think those two coasters are enough to hold up all those roller coasters by Gerstlauer. Another one that I was unsure if I should put it on the official list or not is Wild Mouse roller coasters. There are a lot of Wild Mouse coasters that have pretty limited theming outside of the mouse themed cars. Those roller coasters in particular are a dime a dozen and you can find them everywhere, but on the other hand there are some nicely themed Wild Mouse coasters out there like the Dark Knight coasters at the Six Flags parks or Exterminator at Kennywood. Outside of those though, I think Wild Mouse coasters are pretty basic. So let's get into the official top 10, and I am going to note that I didn't officially rank these, but I will get into which one I think is number 1 at the end. Let's start with Vekoma Family Boomerangs. A lot of these don't seem to be super immersive, but they have light theming, and I think because of that, it makes the list. Now, Vekoma Family Boomerangs look like really good family coasters. This is something that New Age Vekoma has introduced to Europe, but we're just seeing our first one in America pop up with good gravy at Holiday World. I hope this coaster has as much theming in real life as it does in the animation, because that would really put this family coaster over the top. I think it's a great addition to Holiday World. If you want to hear more about it, click the card above. Next up, we have B&M Wind Coasters. A lot of B&M Wind Coasters don't have tons of themed elements, but almost every single one of them has a themed near-miss element. And this is the main thing that has it qualify for this list. That being said, there are a couple of B&M Wind Coasters that really do stand out. Number 1 would be the Swarm at Thorpe Park. This B&M Wind Coaster has great theming around the attraction, and then some awesome near-miss elements during the ride. Swarm does a really neat job with the storytelling aspect, but Falcon in China is just impressive. This ride originally opened in 2019, and may be one of the biggest thrill coasters to use rockwork that I've seen. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe we have a B&M Wind Coaster with onboard audio. That would be really cool, and I bet you it would make it a really neat experience. Transitioning to the next model, we have one that we see everywhere, Mine Trains. Mine Trains are built by an array of different manufacturers, Vekoma probably doing the best job at it. The ones at the Disney parks stand out, rides like Thunder Mountain, Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, and Expedition Everest. Yes, I think that's a mine train, it's just on a bigger scale. Of course, Aerodynamics built a bunch of these as well, but another really well-themed mine train that comes to mind is Colorado Adventure, located at Phantasialand. This is not going to be the last time that we'll see Phantasialand and Disney on this list. As a general note, a lot of mine trains have a Western theme. Of course, one of the biggest examples of that is the aforementioned Big Thunder Mountain Railroad at the Disney parks. Whether it's built by Arrow or Vekoma, these are pretty solid family coasters for the respective parks, and I enjoy them. Stepping up the thrill level just a bit, let's talk about Mack Extreme Spinners. Of course, there are only 2 of these, Time Traveler at Solidollar City and Ride to Happiness at Plopsaland Japan. But luckily for Mack and those parks, they are both very well themed. Both queue lines have some detailed things to look at and both feature a steampunk style theming. Coaster enthusiasts have raved about these coasters' layouts, and then you add in the theming and it makes them a layer better. I think the potential here for future roller coasters is really high. Of course, the queue and the theming is just part of it. I mentioned how coaster enthusiasts have been raving about the layouts, but seriously, these things are crazy, especially Ride to Happiness. It would be a good layout on its own, but when you add in the spinning, it makes it even more insane. I cannot wait to get on one of these. Probably Time Traveler will be first since it's in the United States. Let's move on to the next one, and we have B&M Inverts. A lot of B&M Invert coasters have the same name, Batman the Ride, and those coasters often don't have much theming, but there are some that really do stand out. Let's go back to Phantasialand, this time for Black Mamba, a roller coaster that twists all the way around the African section of the park. This roller coaster is very impressive, and there's tons of near misses throughout the ride experience. Sticking in Europe, Nemesis at Alton Towers is a roller coaster that is constantly compared to Black Mamba, and for good reason. Because Alton Towers can't build above the tree line, Nemesis's layout is really interesting, and the other thing that's really interesting about it is the ride's story. The story for this coaster basically goes as follows. There was a monster or some sort of strange being under Alton Towers, and it was disturbed during some maintenance. So what Alton Towers had to do in order to make it dormant again was trap it in with this mess of metal track, i.e. the roller coaster. I absolutely love it. That is storytelling in an amusement park level at its finest. Now let's move on to Mack multi-launch roller coasters, which I am separating from the Mack Extreme Spinners because I'm not including Time Traveler and Ride to Happiness in this one. Anyways, coincidentally, one of the best themed ones is located at Europa Park, a park that the Mack family owns themselves. Of course, I'm talking about the original Mack multi-launch roller coaster, and that is Blue Fire, a roller coaster that has been cloned numerous times. Slinky Dog Dash at Walt Disney World should not be forgotten either, despite the fact that it's much smaller in scale. Disney strikes again. This coaster has awesome theming in the queue, and as a whole really fits in with the land. Additionally, I love this coaster's paint scheme. It was so much fun to get video of Slinky Dog. Another example of an American Mack multi-launch that has good theming is Copperhead Strike at Carowinds, a roller coaster that has kind of a weird and convoluted story, but has decent theming in the queue line and a show scene at the beginning of the coaster. While we're on the subject of multi-launch roller coasters, I think it's a good transition to talk about Intamin multi-launch roller coasters. When I really started looking into it, I actually thought that there was going to be more well-themed Intamin multi-launches than I think there really are, even if there are some awesome non-themed Intamin multi-launches. That being said, Gotham City Escape at Parque Warner Madrid has some decent theming. This roller coaster looks absolutely incredible, and the reviews that I've seen have all been ridiculously good. The ride that Gotham City Escape often gets compared to is Velocicoaster at Universal's Islands of Adventure, which is one of the best major thrill coasters out there, both from a layout and theming perspective. This is one of my top bucket list coasters, and it seems that Universal and Intamin did just about everything right, making it a near perfect attraction. Another famous one we have to talk about is Terran once again at Phantasialand. Don't worry, this is the last time we'll talk about Phantasialand. But that's the reason why that Phantasialand is my number 2 bucket list park. The theming at that place looks amazing. But back to Terran, this coaster winds all the way around the Klugheim section of the park. This is one of those coasters where you are not going to be able to memorize the layout. It's winding all over the place and it looks like an incredible experience. Let's talk about Premier Rides for the first time with Premier Rides Spaghetti Bowl roller coasters. This is one that may surprise you, but there's actually a surprising amount of theming on these launch coasters. We have to go back to the Paramount days where Kings Dominion and Kings Island both opened an Outer Limits Flight of Fear launch coaster. The ride experience itself basically just took place in the dark, but there was some nice theming in the queue and pre-boarding experience. Today, the coasters have kept the theming, but have understandably lost the Outer Limits theme as these parks are now owned by Cedar Fair, so they're just known as Flight of Fear. Also, major shout out to Poltergeist at Six Flags Fiesta Texas, a roller coaster that just recently received a facelift and the queue now looks really nice. I believe there's some funhouse elements and the station looks really great too, so overall, Fiesta Texas, excellent job here, you're standing out. Second to last, we have Mack water coasters. Some of these are pretty gimmicky and are really closer to a water ride than they are a roller coaster, but regardless, ultimately they are roller coasters, so we're gonna count them. The ones that stand out most though are the ones that have an extended layout, like Storm Coaster in Australia, a ride that has a dark ride bit at the end. This appears to be a decent themed section at the end, but the best themed Mack water coaster has got to be Journey to Atlantis at SeaWorld Orlando. The other Journey to Atlantis coasters are hit and miss. The one in San Diego has a little bit of theming, and the one in San Antonio has absolutely no theming, but the one in Orlando is very good in this department. The ride begins with some nice indoor show scenes of the city of Atlantis. These show scenes are surprisingly well done, and it makes me wonder why SeaWorld doesn't do more theming. I really wish they did. These scenes are a really nice touch, and all the while they build anticipation for the coaster's final 2 drops, which are both pretty sizable, and I would think you can get pretty wet on them. Let's end it out with some B&M dive machines. In the conversation of theming, it feels wrong to start anywhere else but Baron 1898 at Efteling in the Netherlands. This roller coaster has a steampunk theme, and that lift structure is awesome, along with the fact that it's very iconic. Unfortunately, the ride layout itself is very short, and I believe the prime ride time is less than 20 seconds, but the theming can make up for that short ride time in a sense. I'm not sure how much theming Crake at Gardaland has, besides the fact that there's that monster creature thing at the beginning. That being said, that thing is so cool that I had to include it in some way. Finally, let's talk about one more coaster from the States, Dr. Diabolical's Cliffhanger at Six Flags Fiesta Texas. This one also has a steampunk theme, with Fiesta Texas once again providing some awesome theming just like we saw with Poltergeist. In 2023, a Six Flags coaster featuring a pre-show is kind of unheard of, but we have one here on Dr. Diabolical. Well done once again, Fiesta Texas. So that's the list I've come up with. Please let me know in the comment section below if you would change anything and or if you would include any other different coaster models that I missed. So what do we learn from this? Number 1, Phantasialand has really good theming. And number 2, multi-launch coasters seem to be the best themed coaster type. Overall, I think it was an interesting list, and I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to watch this video. That being said, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.